If you love family, show me your hand if it is one away. Don't follow me, cause technically you're one time. Family is family, and them is blood, but them don't want to see the sunshine. Family don't ever fret to have your back at all time. Tell them and the friends, we fretting with we family. With me family. When we come to we must show fun. Turn up dance we like a home. Everybody chop it up together. Chop it up together. Mash it up together. Mash it up together. Wave it up together. Wave it up together. Chop it up together. We don't see skin. Double M. We see power. Garden. We don't see race. Skin is fabulous. We see brother. I'm moving every with me family. With me family. When we come to we're ready. We're ready. Yeah, we're ready. 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 We're ready. We're ready. Yeah, we're ready. 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 Look how the sun now raising up, and the crowd now waking up. The atmosphere have vibes, and nothing can break it up. The girl them a wine non-stop. We are the drinks them in a my cup. We gonna party all night, all night. 24 parties we hit in a row. Tonight at the very last show. Before we head out on the road, the girl them a release the load. So let me see your hands up, so everybody know, put your hands up, so if you're ready for the road, let your friend them know. We're ready for the road. We're ready for the road. So we're ready. We're ready. Yeah, we're ready. We're ready. Yeah, we're ready. 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 Yeah, we're ready. We're ready. We're ready. We're ready. The girl them a wait all week. Forget up on the road like freak. The music full of applause with thousands of chipping feet. Everywhere you look is just food, and everybody in a real nice mood. We gonna party all night, all night. Everyone with painted body, clean credit and tainted money. Nobody want to dance by themselves. Everybody wanna dance on somebody. Well, let me see your hands up, so everybody know, put your hands up, so if you're ready for the road, let your friend them know. We're ready for the road. We're ready for the road. So we're ready. We're ready. Yeah, we're ready. We're ready. Yeah, we're ready. 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 Yeah, we're ready. We're ready. We're ready. We're ready.
Good evening, everyone. Wow, okay, we have several people joined in. Good evening. Welcome to UWISTAT's first ever staging of Caribbean Youth Day Leadership and Empowerment Activated in Diversity. I'll be your moderator for this evening. My name is Ashley Onfroy, and welcome. We will begin officially in just a few minutes, just waiting on a few more persons to join, and then we'll begin. In the meantime, um, enjoy the music, start thinking about all the wonderful things that we're going to discuss, and get ready to have a great time.
Ready to make we name. All ready to jump hard and we hard and jump hard and we hard. No better pick a side, 'cause now we ready to ride it. This side of fire, this side of energy, a positive energy, and they cannot damage it. My side of fire, my side of energy, a positive energy, and they cannot damage it. Show me now everything, show me now everything, up in the sky there. Tell them to pick a side, oh. Show me now everything, show me now everything, up in the sky there. Tell them to pick a side. All the pain make me stronger, I suffer no longer. The harder the fight, Lord, the victory still. We just shine in me life now, man nothing go bother me. I full up of energy, can't stop me now. All ready to jump, all ready to play, all ready for mass, ready to make we name. All ready to jump hard and we hard and jump hard and we hard. No better pick a side, 'cause now we ready to ride it. This side of fire, this side of energy, a positive energy, and they cannot damage it. My side of fire, my side of energy, a positive energy, and they cannot damage it. Show me now everything, show me now everything, up in the sky there. Tell them to pick a side, oh. Show me now everything, show me now everything, up in the sky there. Tell them to pick a side, oh. Yeah, pretty cool them there. You better clap your hands now. Yeah, you better clap your hands now. Na 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 na. If you with me, show me now. Na 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 na. Pick your side or do not go. Na 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 na. If you with me, show me now. You better pick a side, 'cause now we ready to ride it. This side of fire, this side of energy, a positive energy, and they cannot damage it. My side of fire, my side of energy, a positive energy, and they cannot damage it. Show me now everything, show me now everything, up in the sky there. Tell them to pick a side, oh. Show me now everything, show me now everything, up in the sky there. Tell them to pick a side, oh. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. We don't want no bad fights in the mass. Because everybody ready up for the mass. Because take a chip, take a chip, take a chip, take a chip now. Hey, shake it, hip, shake it, hip, shake it, hip, shake it, hip, wow. We are the sound of 100,000 coming on the road. We are the vibration that you feel when the music loads. We are the mud and the oil and we come the dirty of the clothes. I bet the girl them wine and strike the electric pose. Hey, take a chip, take a chip, take a chip, take a chip now. Hey, shake it, hip, shake it, hip, shake it, hip, shake it, hip now. Hey, take a sip, take a sip, take a sip, take a sip now. Wine and go dip, and go dip, and go dip, and go dip now. Hey, I swear we are the sound them selectors play every day, making you sway. And when the girl them tell and shadow dingole, I hear the soul God say, we are the sound of soca. everyone start dancing in the middle of the road. Cause we don't need no permits to free these hearts and soul. Hey, Tuesday morning we trip with snake and a cricket and a toad. Cause everything is everything and that time anything goes. Take a trip, take a trip, take a trip, take a trip now. On the left, on the left. Shake your hip, shake your hip, shake your hip, shake your hip, wow. On the right, yo. Take a sip, take a sip, take a sip, take a sip now. Selectors play every day, making you sway. And when the girl them tell lele and shadow ding dole, I hear this word from say, this is the sound of soca. Big bad soca. Big bad soca. Big bad soca. We have the champion sound. Everybody whine to the champion sound. We have the champion sound. Whine and go down to the champion sound. We have the champion sound. Everybody whine to the champion sound. We have the champion sound. Everybody whine to the soca.
Okay, everyone. So welcome back. And for those of you who are just joining us, you have tuned into UWISTAT's first ever online Caribbean Youth Day Forum under the theme Leadership and Empowerment Activated in Diversity. I just want to commend you all for being with us this evening. This is a historic occasion. As I said, it's our first ever forum, and we hope to continue doing this for several years to come. At this point in time, I just want to say that we have with us several members from UWISTAT Mona, from UWISTAT Kville, UWISTAT Open Campus, UWISTAT St. Augustine, persons from other countries, and persons who are also alumni ambassadors or alumni for the University of the West Indies. As I would have mentioned previously, my name is Ashley Onfroy, and I'm the Vice President of CARICOM Relations for UWISTAT Mona for the 2020-2021 academic year. And I'll also be your moderator for the evening. This evening, we have some very special panelists. I'm telling you, some top tier individuals, exceptional in their craft at youth leadership. And we will hear about them in just a few. But at this moment in time, I just want to lay out quite a few ground rules for you. Nothing too serious, nothing too difficult. So the forum this evening will be obviously on the Zoom platform. So I'm asking you as best as possible to keep your mics muted. Please, if you have something to say, if it's a suggestion or a comment or a question, because we will be accepting questions throughout the forum and be addressing them as best as possible. Just put them in the chat to your right-hand corner. Just leave them right there, but as best as possible, keep your mics muted. Also in the chat are the YouTube live stream links for those of you who might have friends who are having difficulties getting into the Zoom itself. You can go to the YouTube link and it is right there in the chat. At this point in time, I'd like to invite our panelists to turn on their cameras and just give us a nice smile, a nice wave, and say hi for the evening. They'll be formally introduced further on, but just want to invite them to turn on their cameras. Ah, look at that. Watch the teeth, the pearly white smile. It's really great to have everyone here with us this evening. Our panelists this evening are, and please forgive me if I am butchering your name. Please forgive me. Kobe Brooms. We also have with us Cardisha St. Louis. Is that correct? Awesome. Love that. Mr. Neil Gomes. Is that also correct, Neil? Great. And Anya Edwin. So as I would have mentioned, we're going to formally introduce you, but for now, just turn on your mic and let's hear your top tier voice, welcoming voice, and see your dashing smile. So just give us greetings.
Hi, good evening, everybody from the beautiful island of St. Lucia.
Woo! Love that.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm bringing you greetings from the rainy island of Barbados right now.
All right.
Hi, good evening, everybody. From the land of 365 rivers, Dominica, pleasant good evening.
Okay. Okay.
I am Neil Gums from the beautiful island of Angola, rated #1 island in the Caribbean, by the way.
Okay, I am Ashley Onfroy and I'm from the island of Jamaica. We have reggae and jerk and Usain Bolt. So thank you for that, panelists. At this point in time, I'm going to ask our president for UWISTAT Mona, Mr. James Perritt, to bring us greetings on behalf of that Ambassador Corps. James, you're up.
No problem, and thank you for that, Ashley. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and happy Caribbean Youth Day to one and all. To our Caribbean brothers and sisters joining us live on Zoom or YouTube, it is definitely a pleasure to have you all here this evening. But if you know you have that friend, colleague, or someone you definitely know would be interested in being here as well, feel free to send them a message that they're missing out on this opportunity. Mine is a pleasure to welcome you all to today's virtual forum on the 35th ever Caribbean Youth Day. Though we may be separated from one another in our respective countries due to the COVID-19 pandemic or across the Caribbean Sea, it's quite beautiful that technology continues to enable us to meet, converse, and share our experiences as Caribbean youth in this format. Personally, my identity as a Caribbean youth means everything to me. You can feel every moment so intensely, from our culture to our history. And my personal favorite are Caribbean dishes. I, and I'm sure many others, feel joy that we were lucky enough to grow up in the Caribbean, where innovation and excellence knows no boundary. As Caribbean youth, it means finding your true self, struggling and learning for your future life. It means trying new things and doing things in the hope of making oneself, your family, your country, and your Caribbean proud. But youth also means to me that it's about learning that not everything is so good, perfect, or positive. But there is nothing wrong that cannot be fixed by everything that is right to the Caribbean. And as I close my welcome address, I charge each and every one of you joining us here to listen keenly. Type your questions in the chat on Zoom, YouTube, or even on Twitter using the hashtag Caribbean Youth Day or hashtag We Are West Indian. Happy Caribbean Youth Day to you all.
Thank you for that, James. You just heard the warm welcome and greetings from our president at the UWISTAT Mona, Ambassador Chris James Peart. At this point in time, I'm also going to invite some other very special ambassadors from across the Caribbean to give us our formal introduction for our panelists.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Nicholas McIntyre, and I'm the Deputy VP of CARICOM Relations here at Western Jamaica Campus. And I'm going to introduce today our lovely Credisha St. Louis. 26-year-old Credisha St. Louis is CEO of KS Consultancy, Inc., a social digital media marketing and consultancy company, as well as self-proclaimed nature lover with an innate sense for wanderlust. For over 6 years, Credisha is best known for her work in media as a journalist, news anchor, and talk show host, notwithstanding her work as an experienced public speaker and master of ceremonies, among other things. Credisha is currently president of the National Youth Council of Dominica, a member of the Caribbean Regional Youth Council, a member of the PANCAP Youth Leaders Network. She's also the Dominican representative of the Eastern Caribbean Southeast Asia Economic and Cultural Chamber. She's a member of the Dominica Global Environment Fund Small Grants Committee and also a member of the Dominica Red Cross, as well as a member of the Dominica Reading Association and a plethora of other things. She holds a degree in English literature and currently resides in the Commonwealth of Dominica and considers it a privilege to positively impact young lives in a meaningful way. Kurdisha's future plans include furthering her education in the field of marketing and journalism and using this to further her business as well as contribute to the well-being of the people of her home, the Nature Isles. I thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Kurdisha St. Louis. Kurdisha, say, give us another high
Wow,
again.
wow, wow. Thank you so much. You know, I feel like you hyped me up so much that I have to do a really excellent job this evening. But thank you so much. And it is a pleasure to be here for this momentous occasion. I'm so honored that you all chose me to be a panelist. And I'm looking forward to having an amazing contribution this evening.
All right, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, Kurdish.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can, Monique.
Okay, lovely. Hi, everyone. My name is Monique Powell. I am the Vice President of Membership of UWISTAT Mola, and I am here to introduce none other than Mr. Neil Gums. Mr. Neil Gums is a history teacher by profession at the Albina Lake Hodge Comprehensive School. Mr. Gums is from the beautiful island of Anguilla, where he motivates and leads young people daily. More than just a simple teacher, Mr. Gums is a volunteer. He is the president of Anguilla National Youth Council, ANYC, sorry. Throughout his tenure there, he has spearheaded several youth development initiatives and currently sits on the board of the Anguilla Youth Business Foundation. He has also represented Anguilla regionally and internationally in his capacity as president of the ANYC, as well as throughout his sporting career. He is also currently the vice chair, members, and partnership of the Caribbean Regional Youth Council, where his leadership extends to the region, uniting them on their goal of regional youth development. Most importantly, he shares a passion for youth and the sustainable development of the Caribbean. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Neil Gums.
Thank you very much for that introduction. You have me here smiling. You should also mention I'm a alumni of UWI, and I'm glad to be here with you guys today. I'm a caveite.
Okay.
Okay, hello everyone. Good evening. Is everyone seeing and hearing me?
Hi, Curtis. You're good to go.
Yes, perfect. Hi everyone. My name is Curtis Johnson, and I am the Vice President of CARICOM Relations of the Cave Hill arm of the UWISTAT Corps. This evening, I have the honorable pleasure of introducing a phenomenal young woman. Anya Edwin was born in Castries, St. Lucia on December 31st, 1992. She's a lover of the performing arts due to her participation in dance, pageantry, carnival, and other cultural activities. In 2017, she completed her bachelor's degree in business management with a minor in entertainment and media industry. The day you stop seeking knowledge is the day you stop growing. Anya truly identifies with this quote and wishes to pursue a master's degree in policy, diplomacy, and governance as she aspires to become a policy analyst with a primary focus on social development in the near future. She formerly served as treasurer of the St. Lucia National Youth Council and program director of the Commonwealth Youth Peace Ambassadors Network, St. Lucia. She currently holds the positions of First Vice President and Chairperson of the International Affairs Committee of the St. Lucia National Youth Council, former Operations Director and now Deputy Chairperson of the Caribbean Youth Conference, Chairperson of the Miss Cicerone Pageant, and Operations Director of Intellectual Engagement for Natural Innovation, IENI. Anya previously served on the St. Lucia Most Talented Teen and Miss Independence pageant committees, Silver Shadow Performing Arts Academy Administrator, and Project Coordinator of Mochi United FC grassroots program, among many other community-based voluntary positions. In January 2020, Anya was elected as the Vice Chair for Resource Mobilization of the Caribbean Regional Youth Council, CRYC. Professionally, she is employed as the Resource Mobilization Officer for the St. Lucia Social Development Fund, with additional responsibility for program development, most notably the recently introduced Our Boys Matter program. She served as the administrative assistant slash secretary to the St. Lucia National Volunteer Program from 2013 to 2016, and has been serving as the volunteer coordinator for the Caribbean Premier League since its inaugural year, 2013. Anya recently graduated from the inaugural Women in Politics Leadership Institute program, hosted by the US Embassy in August 2020, and was recently elected as chairperson of the OECS Youth Advisory Network. Ladies, gentlemen, and possible non-binary folks, please help me in welcoming Anya Edwin.
Thank you very much, Curtis, for that introduction. And again, good evening to everybody, and happy Caribbean Youth Day to all young people who are joined in on this call this evening. Looking forward to this very exciting and youthful discussion.
And thank you for joining us, Anya. Emily?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kamaloy Murphy. I am the Vice President, CARICOM Relations for UWISTAT Open Campus. This evening, I am tasked with introducing Mr. Kobe Brooms, and I'll go right ahead with his bio. Mr. Kobe Brooms is a multimedia specialist by profession with the leading online news publication in Barbados. He is current president of the Students Guild and first vice president of Barbados Youth Development Council. He has a passion for youth and service, which is deeply rooted in his philosophy that young people not only need to be given a seat at the table, but they must be given an opportunity to be heard. This final year media and journalism student has served on the Barbados Youth Parliament from 2015 to present. In 2016, Kobe represented Barbados in the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association Regional Youth Parliament and currently sits as Deputy Board Member Information, Marketing and Social Media on the Communications Committee for the Caribbean Regional Youth Council. Please help me give Mr. Brooms a warm welcome.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I am the least of the disciples of the panelists. I thought when they said short that everybody was going to be short, so I sent in a very short bio. But a pleasure to be here, everyone, and happy Caribbean Youth Day to each and every one of you. And I look forward to having a conversation with my fellow panelists this evening and being able to answer any of your questions.
Okay, thank you everyone for doing the introductions of our panelists, and thank you again to our panelists for being here. So we're going to jump right into the discussion. When you were planning this forum, the CARICOM Relations Committee at UWISTAT Mona decided that we were going to come up with the acronym LEAD, Leadership and Empowerment Activated in Diversity. We felt that this was very fitting given the fact that as a Caribbean region, we really are a diverse people. We look different, we sound different, we like different things. Different things are important in our countries, amongst a plethora of other things. So panelists, very briefly, when you think about leadership and empowerment activated in diversity, what comes to mind? And this is open, just anyone can answer at this point in time.
I think for me, I guess I can go ahead, ladies first. I think for me, especially as a female leader in a position where, speaking on a Dominica standpoint, because I'm from Dominica, that's where I live, you know, it's something that's kind of rare because especially in terms of the National Youth Council, you know, we didn't have a lot of female youth leaders. leaders. You know, that is not something that was really pushed. And I feel like when we talk about leadership and we talk about diversity in leadership, that's one of the avenues I really advocate for more young women to be able to see themselves in leadership positions, to not be scared to go for things that they think that they could positively contribute towards, or they can definitely pull out the big man shoes, as we like to say in our local terms. So I definitely think that moving forward, all of us in the Caribbean, especially us right now as youth leaders, presidents,
Is everyone able to hear me?
We can hear you, but before Khadijah came on, she had to restart her computer. She's having internet issues, unfortunately, so perhaps that's why she's cutting off. But we can hear you. It's Khadijah's technical issues.
Oh, okay.
He's back now.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that with us, Khadijah. Can one other panelist, share with us their perspective on the acronym? What does it mean to you? What came to mind? Oh, and before you respond, I just want to alert everyone's attention to the possibility of a poll being on your screen. We want to know if, as a Caribbean youth, do you believe that your voice has an impact in the region? So just quickly respond to that, and we'll be able to end the polling soon enough. But yes, panelists, just respond to that, please.
I want to continue off from where Khadijah left, and of course, as a woman in leadership, express how important it is for other avenues to be explored to cultivate women leadership skills. Also, on the topic of Caribbean Youth Day, and in a situation where we're faced with a global pandemic, we want to know for certain that young people are being brought into the conversation as to what avenues can be explored to help us, not just as a youth population, but as a whole world, irrespective of age. How do we shape the trajectory of getting from where we are now and going past the pandemic? So for me, leadership and empowerment, activity and diversity is really building capacity among young people so that we could, of course, help build our country, build our entire region and the world at large as to where we head as a whole society.
Thank you, Anya. Following on from what you said, I'll take it a little bit further to also include the differently able and persons of different sexual orientation and such. Like in our Caribbean society, we have to be real in terms of what the perceived notions are. And I found it that it really hit me in the face. I was almost living in almost like a utopia, saying that, okay, well, we're including having white consultation and being diverse in our leadership and bringing everyone to the table. I thought that was the way in which we were going until Barbados announced that we were going to become a republic, or we're going to recognize same-sex unions and those other kind of things. And it already hit me back in the face and say, oh, here's your wake-up call and reminder. So leadership and diversity and inclusivity is something that we still have a long way to go in the Caribbean. And I think that we are the generation, in terms of us young people, know that will take it forward. I made reference to the current ongoing saga of CXC and so on. No political or religious organization had to inspire those young people to go and protest outside of CXC headquarters. So I believe then that in terms of leadership and taking up the mantle and fighting against what have been seen as the customs and norms, that our generation will be the ones to do it, but we have a long way to go. And I think almost we're recognizing is the first step. Recognizing is the first step, and I think we've come to the point of recognition that we have to be more inclusive and we have to be more diverse in order for the Caribbean and countries to go forward. And I think we are at that stage now, so it's only up from here.
Okay, carrying on with the point of inclusivity, I would like to add another group. People of low economic standing, as well as people who aren't academically inclined, because as we see, all the opportunities for youth development are usually given to people like myself or people like us on the panel who has the education, who has the finance. Well, I don't know your financial standing, but you may be, adequate. But there aren't much opportunities for youth development for persons who have a low economic standing, persons who don't have who are not academically inclined, and so on. So I'd like to add that part into the discussion.
Yes, thank you. I'm happy that some of these key points were brought out in everyone's explanations, because we actually intend to more or less touch on them with the following questions. However, I just want to let everyone know that I'm going to end the polling. Yes. So the results. The question was, do you as a Caribbean youth believe that your voice has an impact in the region? It was a multiple choice question and the options were yes, no, and maybe. We have 46 respondents and 72% of the respondents said yes. I am very, very happy to see this. For some reason, I felt as though the yes was going to be a bit lower, but I'm very happy. This is a good move in the right direction. Only 4% said no, and 26% said maybe. So I want to thank everyone for participating. Let me just take a screenshot of this. Yes, so thank everyone for participating in the poll.
If I could just say something on that as well. When the young lady was reading the bio, and I made mention in the mantra of young people should not only be given a seat at the table, but given the opportunity to be heard. In response to that direct question, it was a situation earlier this year before the COVID-19 pandemic. There was a heads of government CARICOM meeting in Barbados. And I had the opportunity to attend the opening of the session. And I was watching with my president of BYDC, and we made a revelation, or an observation rather, that of the heads of government and all the people who were there making the policy decisions, if there was one person under 35, there was a lot. So it is a case where we may have conversations and say, yeah, we have these grand ideas and so on, but is it that our ideas are being heard and acted upon? Is it that we have young people in strategic positions that can further the cause of young people? So for instance, in Barbados, the government has taken a position where on every statutory board, there has to be a young person on that board in terms of continuity and so on. And that has been working well so far, but at the level of Caribbean heads, that is where I'm a little concerned, especially coming out of that opening of the heads of government meeting, that there isn't much youth representation at the meeting to say then that our ideas and our views can be directly pushed.
Well, that is true, Kobe, and I'm glad you brought that up too, because on the topic of making significant strides in the right direction, I believe I'm very happy to know that that had occurred in Barbados. And very recently too in Jamaica, we had something that was a little bit unprecedented. We had the youngest, well, to date, senator appointed, and she's 23. So that is a step in the right direction. It says to us as Caribbean youth that the trajectory is shifting, it's changing, it's becoming more inclusive, and the body of individuals who will be legislators and those in power who are actively making decisions, it's now going to be a diverse group of persons. So in no way, shape, or form are we saying that we should exclude the aged or the older persons, but we want it to be a more inclusive space. I'm going to stop sharing results now. So to continue on that, a lot of things were said about taking up the mantle and inclusivity of those of various communities, socioeconomic backgrounds, and educational levels. And we spoke a little bit about moving up into regional leadership, but as we would have noted, there are some hindrances. So I want for us to explore what are some hindrances to youth leadership. And I mean, it can be taken from any angle, from the small scale to the large scale. And I think I'm gonna ask Neil and Kardisha to touch on this one for me.
Kardisha can go first.
Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Well, speaking from personal experience, I think one of the biggest hindrances to youth leadership actually I would consider is mental. I think a lot of the times young people tend to underestimate themselves at their own
Kardisha, sorry
because so
to
many
sorry
times
to
I
interrupt,
meet.
but can you? I'm so sorry, but you're a little bit, just a little bit low. You adjust the volume, please.
Too low? Is this better? I might have to hold my microphone a little closer.
That's much better. Thank you.
All right, excellent. All right, what I was saying is that I think one of the main hindrances is actually mental, because a lot of the times when I meet young people who are interested, in joining the National Youth Council or joining a part of an organization, what strikes me the most is just sometimes the self-doubt that they carry with themselves. And I think it's a lot of times that we don't encourage young people. We have that mantra saying that, young people are always up to no good, or they're never going to amount to anything, or this generation is so terrible. And that's something we hear all the time, from people who are older than us, more mature. So I think that in itself sort of weighs on the psychology of the mind of young people. So I always try to encourage them and let them know that whatever it is that you're passionate about, nothing should stop you in pursuing it. Whatever it is that you want to do, whatever impact it is that you want to make, nothing should stop you from pursuing it, especially the opinions of other people, because you never know how good you will be at something until you try. And sometimes your biggest uh, blockade to success is yourself. Besides the mental, I definitely think a lot of the times we are hindered. A lot of people may come for me by saying this, but I do think that a lot of more mature people, or people in certain positions, feel threatened by young people, especially well-spoken, articulate young people who know what they're about, who can stand up for themselves, who can defend themselves, who want to see a better.
Okay, I can see that her internet is having issues, so I'll continue. It's very
Thank
interesting
you.
she went down that point, because I wrote down knowledge. Because as I said, I'm a teacher as well, and you can see in certain individuals the leadership capabilities, but in their mind, they don't believe that they can actually be a leader. So the knowledge of the ability to be a leader, the self-motivation, to me, is one of the biggest hindrances to Caribbean leadership and leaders in Angola.
I think, Kobe, do you want to touch on that, or Anya? See you inching towards.
I also wanted to follow on from that as well to say that a point that Neil made earlier, the socioeconomic situation of some people is also a deterring factor, because sometimes, and it's even interesting in the makeup of this panel, that I know everyone on this panel, because you find in youth leadership in a country that is as big as Jamaica, that has over 1 million people, or Trinidad that has over 1 million people, you find the same set of young people doing the same things all the time. And sometimes it comes over as an elite club, and persons who may not be in that social status, or be able to go to all the cocktails or go to all these things, that may be a deterrent. Some people may be naturally academic, but because they can't afford to participate in some of the activities that youth leaders are asked to do, so they can't just pick up and go to a conference, or they can't just do as I said, some of the other activities. So those are some other factors that you may find where you don't see that diversity in youth leadership as well.
I wish to make a point on this question, Ashley, if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, my colleagues touched on a lot of key points that are hindrances in youth participation in regional leadership. But we see young people, and we see that they possess the energy and the ideas required to make significant contributions in the regional spaces. And of course, this meaningful participation, and like Kobe would have alluded to earlier, is impeded because of a lack of insufficient knowledge sharing. And then you would have Caribbean youth who have mandates and operations that they have to fulfill for regional bodies. But there is evidence for that there is disconnect for whatever reason. Organizations such as CDB and with the youth policy and operational strategy, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with that. That was hosted earlier this year. And then you have the OECS with the Youth Empowered Society and Youth Advisory Board. So these are commendable organizations or initiatives where persons or young people are getting involved in the whole regional leadership movement, at higher levels and not just at national levels. You also realize that there is so much inconsistency in the political will from regional governments to mainstream youth development, and that is simply through them not sourcing or resourcing regional structures. For example, we have CARICOM youth ambassadors. We have a Caribbean Regional Youth Council, which does not receive any sort of governmental subvention, or unless we apply for funding for maybe a program or project, but it's not something that is consistent or given to the CRIC or even the CYAs. The CYAs, most of the times you just hear them traveling. I must commend the Barbados CARICOM Youth Ambassadors, however, for always making so many tremendous strides and being so innovative and creative. What we also realize is that we have few legislated autonomous NYCs with active local membership. NYC in St. Lucia, we are governed by an act of legislation, but how many other national youth councils can say the same? So we're speaking of regional solidarity and involvement among youth-led organizations, but it has to begin with in-country engagement. And of course, our government leaders must make a case on behalf of us nationally for when they go to represent us on the larger scale throughout the region.
Yes, several points were touched. I just want to go back on, I believe it was Kardisha that touched the point, and Neil as well, of self-doubt and apprehension. That is a major hindrance to youth becoming really involved on a macro, even a micro level in regional leadership. I can put myself as a lamb to the slaughter and say that I am one of those who, I may have ideas, but I am afraid. And I'm happy that you all on the panel would have shared with us that really we do have the ability, and it's not for us to doubt ourselves, but to recognize that we can significantly contribute to any space and anything that we are a part of. And I just want to continue on to touch, because we made mention of several youth organizations, and Neil had mentioned knowledge, and something that we as Caribbean youth, we tend to say is, I don't know how to, and I don't know what to get into. I don't know the various bodies, committees. So I would love for panelists to share with us. Anya had touched on some, and I'm sure those might be a little bit new to some of the individuals tuning into the call, but I do know the Caribbean Regional Youth Council, there is UWISTAT, but there are quite a few others. And how can somebody who is interested in being involved in regional leadership, where do they go? What are the committees? What are the avenues? This is an open one. Anybody can tackle it first.
As the vice chair, members and partnerships, I should encourage you to go to your national youth councils and go from there, because the national youth councils are basically us, the Caribbean Regional Youth Council. So we represent them, we support them in everything they do. So my path to this stage started with volunteering in a club in Angola, in numerous clubs. And then I was elected to the National Youth Council, and I was involved in the activities and so on. And then whenever there's an activity available, the National Youth Council put that out, and then here I am in Caribbean leadership.
So the National Youth Council, that's one way to get in.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Neil. Sometimes it's as easy as starting from the grassroots level. It's as easy as finding a club in your community that you are interested in, something that you share similar interests with other people, or start your own club. Sometimes, so many times people tell me, I don't know what club to join. I just say, what are you interested in? Find that thing that it is that you're interested in. And I'm sure that there are other people who are interested in that same activity, project, whatever it is. And boom, there you go, get 5 people, and that's a group. You put a plan together, you create whatever positions that you have. Sometimes it's not going for the big groups, but sometimes it's finding that niche and growing that niche yourself. And you can be surprised at how far you can go through that.
Anya, Kobe, want to touch on that as well?
Well, like you said, I mentioned a few earlier, and my colleagues would have articulated it perfectly when they say you need to start from somewhere. You need to start from your community club, your community organization. You cannot just expect to, nothing happens overnight. It's a gradual process. You would mention the UWI Guild student networks that they have all around the region. We have individual national youth councils that my colleagues would have mentioned. We have the Caribbean Regional Youth Summit that is hosted by the Caribbean Regional Youth Council every year. We have in St. Lucia, we host the Caribbean Youth Conference, and that is an annual event as well. We have organizations like CFYR, which is Community, Family, and Youth Resilience. Although it was not done throughout the entire region, there were specific countries. I also know that the program ended this month, but I'm not sure how much engaged they are within the community. Perhaps if my colleague is on the call, Jani Lebon, he could provide some insight on that through the comments, and so persons can be more engaged. Well, recently the OECS Commission formed the Youth Advisory Network, and this network is really to standardize, operationalize, and form the youth empowerment strategy, which we intend to launch within a year or so. And I realize also is there are many youth parliamentary sessions happening within the region. So there is really potential for the development of a regional youth parliament consisting of parliamentarians from the different territories. So that is something that will or can keep our young people engaged. What I also realized too is after a conference on event, you have WhatsApp groups form and people stay connected. So that is a means of staying connected within what is happening within the region. And my encouragement to everybody who is there who don't know how to get engaged is start at the grassroots level and then you go up from there.
And I just wanted to add a little bit. I think it's kind of interesting because I think a lot of us, when we are in high school, there are a lot of options for groups and clubs and organizations like that for us to join, So I definitely want to encourage young people who are in school to get involved in a group in your school, because sometimes that might be the starting point for you to go on to bigger and better things. And right now, there's a plethora of groups now in high schools that you can join. There's lots of clubs, there are lots of organizations, and I'm sure if you're interested in something that's out of school, you can maybe ask your teacher or council or whatever, what national group that they think you'll be able to join, whether it be Rotary, Toastmasters, or whatever it is that is in your island. There must be something that you can find that you fit yourself in quite well.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought Kobe was going to go. Well, Kobe, actually you are going to go because I have a question for you. You didn't escape. So we have been discussing ways for youth across the Caribbean to become more involved. And so far we've been discussing the more so traditional methods, going through these youth councils and being involved in somewhat of I want to say political side of regional involvement. What about the young persons who are daunted by that sort of an idea and they want to take some more non-traditional routes? So, for example, things like media and arts to really advance regional collaboration, growth, and leadership, because I know, Kobe, that you are regionally renowned media personality. So I want you I want you to shed some light on that for me. How can young people get involved in other ways besides joining these corporations?
Well, thank you for that endorsement. That's the first time I'm hearing that one. But I will say though that as the panelists before me said, it starts at a grassroots level, and it all depends on interest. But the first thing that you have to do, sometimes you hear the complaint, "Oh, there's nothing for me to do. I don't know how to get involved." You might, if you're not looking, then you can't find. And I find that sometimes we just throw our hands in the air and say, "Oh, there's nothing to do," but we aren't looking. And as Kadisha said, if there's nothing for you, then start an organization. So from a grassroots perspective, it would make sense to find community clubs. So if you're interested in football, then start a football tournament. If you realize that there's an issue with young men or young women in the community and they're not actively engaged in something positive, then you can start your own activity or initiative. And if it is that you're looking to connect with people from across the region to form an association or so on, social media. Don't just go on social media to like the gossip or just go on social media to go on rematch and laugh at the Caribbean memes, but use social media effectively because, and also I will say to young people as well, LinkedIn is going to be your best friend. So you have to use the avenues and you have to use the avenues that are there. My floor member from BYDC is also saying to use the hashtags as well. So if you're looking to connect with people and so on, you have to utilize the technology that we have because it is so easy to connect with people across the social space than it was before. So you have to utilize the technology. There's no excuse that you can't find people in the region, you can't find whatever. Because I'm pretty sure that when you were looking for me, all you had to do was to type in Kobe and you found me on social media. So it's that easy. It's really that easy. So
It is.
like you have to put in a little effort, and I'm pretty sure that you can have some community engagement at a regional level.
Definitely. On the point of social media, I contacted all of you via email first, but then communication was made much easier through social media. And I just want to implore everyone, even if you're not social media savvy, so I wouldn't consider myself to be. Wait, go ahead.
I was gonna say, as I inputs, as a social media strategist, I definitely agree with Kobe, and I think right now what this pandemic has proved is that all of us now are Zoom savvy, emails. Through force. I always try to find a silver lining in things, but I definitely agree that it's made it a lot more easier to communicate. It's a lot easier to plan things. It's a lot easier to come together. I mean, it does have its downsides. I think sometimes we get a little bit too consumed, and I don't know, for me, sometimes I find it hard to sort of turn it off because I find myself replying to emails at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m., and these are not working hours, these are not business hours. So sometimes I think we get a little wrapped up too much in the technology. So I think it's also about balance and finding balance and, having screen time, but also having face-to-face human interaction, because that in itself is very important.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. I am very excited because I am seeing the questions coming in the chat. So we're going to get to them in just a moment, but we're going to take a little intermission, a little break right now, and we're going to invite Mr. Ricardo Ricketts. Yes, he is here. Great. So Mr. Ricardo Ricketts, who is the Vice President of Finance for UWISTAT Monon. So just lighten the moment a bit and have a little giveaway. Ricardo, it's your time to shine.
Thank you, Ashley. So good evening, everyone. How are you doing today? Just send a thumbs up in the chat, please, so I can know.
Very good.
All right, great, wonderful. Yes, I know that the panelists gave us some very interesting details, and I know that everyone was paying attention, right? I hope so. So I have a question. So please send your response in the chat so that my partner, Mr. Stanley, can record the person who state the right answer. Okay, so please state the position of Miss St. Louis. I hope I pronounce your name right. Mr. Grubbs, Miss Edwin, and Mr. Brooms. So the first person to send the answer. Easy question, I'm sure of that. Easy question. All right, not seeing any answers yet.
May I answer, Ricardo, or
No, the executives are not allowed to answer. This is a very easy question. Yes, all of them. Very easy, very, very, very easy. Going once, going twice.
Right, we
Okay,
have some
Mr.
answers coming in.
Shamar. All right. But wait, Shamar, I think you're missing someone. One, two, no, one, two.
There is a Latoya Jibison who is sending in.
Yes, I'm checking as well. I'm checking. All right. One is missing. One is missing. All right, Mr. Wedderburn, I know that you are very much involved and paying attention. Mr. Shamar Wedderburn. Wow, Shamar, you are quite involved. Mr. Shamar
I feel like
Wedderburn.
Shamar has an unfair advantage.
I think so too.
Unfair advantage.
I
Shamar knows all of us, and we know Shamar. We know Shamar.
Our
Shamar is an unfair
president
advantage.
of UWISTAT.
I think next in line was Latoya. She's asking what's missing.
All right. So 1, 2.
And Roxanne Russell gave her response.
One person. Latoya, you're missing one person, and that is it Miss? No, you have Miss Edwin. You have Mr. Brooms. Yes, you have that. You have Miss.
Actually, Ricardo, she said both. You know what she did was to put
Oh.
Yes.
All right. So, do we have a winner? Do we have a winner, Miss Latoya Davidson? I hope I pronounced your name right. Please send your. Okay, Shamar, we know you're ambassador now. So, Miss Latoya Davidson, please send your Instagram handle in the chat, and we will get in contact with you as soon as possible. You will be getting a package from UWISTAT, our footprint shirt, armbands, what else? Pop sockets. And a phone card. Congratulations, Miss Stevenson. Well done. And it's easy question. The first person to send this gets a $200 credit. So what is the title of this online forum? The exits are not allowed to answer. What is the title of? You have to state what the L means, what the E means, what the A means, and what the D means.
Can we
have more than?
So since I'm not a member of the executive, I can.
All right. Whoa. Miss Shanice Richards. Whoa, well done. That was fast. So Miss Shanice Richards, please send your Instagram handle. No, Mr. Dan. All right. Yes, Mr. Daniel. But wait. All right, Mr. Daniel Allison. Unfortunately, Miss Shanice Richards got the credit before you. Try again for our last question. So the Caribbean Regional Youth Council came out of a decision made at 3 Caribbean Youth Leaders Summit between which years? Easy question. So I will repeat, the Caribbean Regional Youth Council came out of a decision made at the 3 Caribbean Youth Leaders Summit between which years? No, Adrian, exits are not allowed to answer. That would be totally unfair. Come on. That would be unfair, man. All right. No, Roxanne. No. Not at all. Not at all, Roxanne. Not at all. All right, Miss Deandra Webley is the winner. Well done, Miss Deandra Webley. So it is 2011 to 2013. Well done. And we have a winner, Miss Deandra Webley. Please send your Instagram handle in the chat and you will get and we'll contact you for you to receive your prize.
I feel like we were definitely being listened to because the answers are being answered left, right, and center.
Yes,
so, like,
true.
people were paying attention. Wow.
I love the activism, guys.
Wow.
I love it.
Same here.
Right.
Same here.
You.
I'm gonna follow everybody back in the chat too. I'm gonna follow everybody that's in the chat, dropping their handle. I'll follow you back. I promise.
All right.
You know what? I actually, Kardisha, I'm glad you said that because or the whole idea of this is to integrate and collaborate. So you know what? Let's just all send our social media handles in the chat. One big Caribbean. Yeah, let's. I'll set the example, and I'll just drop mine in the chat.
Loving the energy.
Yeah, and just said that's the energy. Yes. See, she knows. She knows where it's at.
Loving this. Wow, look at the handles. That's right. Listen, when we're finished this evening, nobody can say that they did not interact and make Caribbean friends.
Yeah,
they might have to copy the chat and save it somewhere when the call ends so that we don't lose it.
Yes. I earlier. Oh, thank you so much, Ricardo. I really appreciate it.
No problem, Ashley. No problem.
I noticed I received some questions. So, all right. So this is an open one. I'm just gonna throw it out, and Anya, Kobe, Neil, or Kadisha, you can all answer or choose who'd like to answer. Okay, so the question is, okay. So some Caribbean youths are afraid of challenging their government or those in charge for fear of victimization. Would Caribbean youth as a collective be interested in putting forward a bill dubbed the Anti-Victimization Youth Bill for consideration in the various countries? This is when we did CSEC and you had like 10-mark questions, I think this is a 50-mark question. This is 50 marks, guys. So would Caribbean youth be interested in putting forward a bill dubbed the Anti-Victimization Youth Bill for consideration in various countries? Panelists, free to answer.
Well, I guess if nobody is biting at it, I'll start at it. I'm thinking I would need to find out a little bit more about the victimization which the question is being posed about. Because it doesn't make sense only doing a bill just for political victimization, but I think that it should include the same elements that we're talking about here today when we talk about diversity as well. So if we're going to put forward a bill, then it should be one that is comprehensive, and that we can stand behind as what we want to see going forward. And at this point, if it is a pressing issue in a particular country, then I would suggest reaching out to the NYC and to CRIC so that we can make some advocacy and representation on that immediately. But it would have to cause for further discussion as to what are the specifics of what exactly you mean by the discrimination before we can formulate a bill or so on. But I think individual our national advocacy and then the CRIC level may be the way to go in the first instance.
Yes, thank you. I think that was a good answer because we definitely need some background before we can move together as a collective to pass something of that magnitude. Does anyone else on the panel want to tackle that question, or I think Kobe?
Well, I had to quickly sort of do a little recon because I actually haven't heard of the anti-victimization bill before, so I quickly had to do a little research as to what exactly it entails. But in reading, I definitely do think that is something that we in the Caribbean need to address in terms of victimization, especially at the level of our youth. and our youth are our most important resource. Our youth should be protected at all times, whether it be from the adults, mature people, or from each other. So I definitely would want for the Caribbean, as Kobe said, to come together, put our resources together, do a little bit more research, find out what works, I guess, for each individual country in order to create a bill or create a document that will ensure the safety of young people, because I think that, of course, is paramount no matter where we are.
Indeed, definitely. Okay, so we have another question, and it says, what are some things, this is an example such as this, that you can get involved in right now during this pandemic? It's so hard to go to clubs and meetings right now, physically at least. So this individual is asking, what are some avenues in which youth can become integrated and collaborate for change during this pandemic?
You asked the question, Ashley, and you answered the question. We really have to, we really have to just stay tuned to see what is happening virtually, because that's the only or the safest way to be engaged at this point in time. I know most countries are recovering pretty well. Neil is COVID, Neil. Anguilla is COVID free. St. Lucia is as well. But we still want to encourage safe engagement, safe practicing. And I want to just put on my crick hat for a few minutes. Maybe my colleague may not, maybe a little surprise to my colleague, but we were in discussions today, the chairperson that is and myself, well, not today, but over the last few days, and we are planning to launch a campaign dubbed Now, New, and Next. And that campaign really is going to be a regional movement whereby we engage every single person within the region. We discuss what is happening now. We discuss what needs to happen, which is the new, and next, what we are going to do next. So these will be held for a series of dialogues, and it is the hope that at the end of these discussions, we are going to have an outcome document that we're going to present at the Caribbean or regional level for our heads of government, so that, of course, we can inflict policy in different countries where it's necessary. So I know we mentioned anti-corruption, not against young people. This may not be the same in every territory. So in as much as we are a region which is very similar, we have some differences. And of course, we need to tackle everything individually, even if we collaborate and we operate as a region. So again, stay informed, stay connected, stay engaged. Let's not lose hope as a Caribbean people, a Caribbean young people. The Caribbean Regional Council, Youth Council, is going to be launching that campaign very soon. And of course, in as much as it's going to be a campaign that we intend to undertake throughout our tenure, it is also anticipated that this campaign will present a strategic plan for 3 years, so that the incoming executive or executives can carry the mantle from here. Because one of the hindrances we have in youth development is transition. And what you realize, it happens even in our governments as well. What you realize is when an executive or government changes, the incoming executive or government starts over without even digging into the institutional knowledge of the organization and continuing from where the former executive or government left off. So this is a trend that we need to cease to continue in the region. And we're hoping that with the Caribbean Regional Youth Council, that could be an example in the right direction for not just us young people, but of course we are teaching our leaders how they should operate.
And yeah, I actually love that idea. I'm looking forward to discussing that at the communication level, because basically from what you were explaining to me, what I got from that is that it's almost like a regional national youth policy, where we ask the young people what is happening now and what they want next. So
precisely. Caribbean Regional Youth Council, the executive pretty much is supposed to serve as lobbyists, because there is so much we can do within as a regional organization, considering especially our geographical representation. So we cannot meet as you would have preferred to, of course. And so, like I would have mentioned earlier, every geography, every country is different, the dynamics is different, the structure is different, the operations are different. So we have to do individual consultations and then create a comprehensive document that will be reflective of every single country within our sphere. Because at the end of the day, it's always or it's supposed to be no youth left behind. The OISTAT Advisory Youth Network is doing something similar with the youth empowerment strategy. So I mean, there is still, in as much as COVID has put a very dire strain on engagement of young people, we should not say that all hope is lost and that engagements are not happening. Look, we have UWISTAT engaging us through virtual means. So again, just stay tuned, stay informed, listen to the notices, listen to your colleagues. We are going to be having local or grassroots consultations. So when these announcements come out, just please be engaged. Please provide the support and the engagement that is necessary. We cannot do it alone as an executive. It has to be a joint approach, a regional approach, a youth approach, and of course, remember there is strength in numbers. And like our dear Auntie Mia, the Prime Minister of Barbados, said, when young people engage in battle, the war is normally won. So guys, let's do it.
Yes, and sorry, go ahead, Kobe.
No, I was just trying to say that as my Prime Minister.
Kobe, she's our Prime Minister. She's everybody's Prime Minister. She's the region's Prime Minister.
Essentially, yes. I know that there's a lot of talk of the Caribbean Regional Youth Council. I know for a fact that there's somebody here listening in, whether in the actual Zoom chat or on YouTube, who has this burning question. So I'm gonna ask for them, even though they haven't put in the chat. How can they be directly involved? So yes, you have encouraged us to stay tuned for the updates, which I'm assuming are on Instagram and the other social media platforms. But if they want to become directly involved, how can they do so?
When you say directly, I'm thinking that you're referring to how do you participate in the sessions, right?
Right.
Okay, so more than likely the sessions will be open to every single young person, of course, with particular focus, Neil, that's not manners. We focus group sessions, of course. And because what you want to have or what you want to do is have a very inclusive dialogue, inclusive outcome document that is representative of every single person. So the disabled community, those of the lower socioeconomic background, juvenile offenders. You want it must be all encompassing. So we do intend to go out into the communities. So I will use St. Lucia because I'm from St. Lucia. So when these dialogues start, for example, I will go into Castries, and of course, we will engage the young people of Castries in the dialogue. So it's going to be taking place at the grassroots level, at the national level, and at the regional level. But most of it, of course, will be virtual, considering the status of our health and this global pandemic threat.
Great. Thank you, Anya. Everyone, all of the persons on the Zoom call, I'm encouraging you to keep sending your questions in the chat. I am seeing them and I am going to pose them to the panelists. However, I'm aware that several persons are just, joining in. So if you're just joining us, welcome. Thank you for coming. We are engaging in this panel discussion with our panelists, Kobe Broom, Anya Edwin, Cardisha St. Loy, and Neil Gums. This is UWISTAT's first ever Caribbean Youth Day online forum, and it's being championed under the theme Leadership and Empowerment Activated in Diversity. So we have been having dialogue on some of the hindrances and issues with youth, the leadership in the Caribbean. We've been talking about different ways persons can get involved, as well as the youth organizations. And now we are going to dive into a question from one of our attendees. And the question is as follows. It says, I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, and I'm interested in representational politics. but I don't believe the current political parties are guiding my country in the right way. What do I do? So go right ahead.
I can start a conversation because I have a very active interest in politics, and I was following Trinidad's politics closely in the last election and also Jamaica's. It may sound bad, but sometimes third parties don't necessarily work. So it may be a case where you have to get some like-minded people like yourself and try to infiltrate the party almost like a coup. I'm a little bit radical, so almost like a coup. So, not in the bad sense of a coup, but I'm saying in terms of get some like-minded people like yourself and demand that the party does better. Look at the party that aligns most closest with your philosophies and try to influence them from within and be able to have a base, because you need to have a base in order to, that when you make a position that you can say, well, I have the young people behind me and this is the way in which we want to go. So one of the things that one of the emerging trends for our generation is accountability. And we want to hold politicians, we want to hold people in office accountable. So therefore, something that may have been lacking before, you have to ensure that you yourself build up your brand, because that's something that we hinted at a little bit earlier when we talked about LinkedIn and social media. You have to build your image and your brand in such a way that when you come to this political party, they are going to listen to what you have to say and make the changes necessary. So try to get as many people as you can so that you can get numbers, get a base, get a support group, and shape the imaging in which you would want it to go.
I definitely agree with that. Do any of the other panelists want to touch on it? So yes, everyone, keep your questions coming into the chat, or you can send them to me directly. I'm gonna see them. Okay, another question is, how does one get others to be enthused about changes that they would like to make? So in other words, how do we, if we see something that we want to change or be involved in, how do we rally up other youth? What are some ways, some practical ways to do that?
Okay, I will provide a brief response to that. Kobe would have alluded to getting like-minded individuals and forming a coup. What I advise is that you do your research, you try to be as informed as possible before you go and present your point to somebody to convince them. And if you're not convinced, or if you cannot sell yourself, then how am I supposed to be convinced that I should follow you and be a soldier of your word? So for me, it's really about being informed, and if you think that it makes enough sense through the research that you would have conducted, then do not doubt yourself, like you would have mentioned earlier, and go for it.
Most definitely. There are some comments in the chat, so I'm just reading them, and they're definitely endorsing everything that we have just been saying. So I want to change the mode of the discussion into a little bit of relatively uncharted waters. And I want to talk about, or I want us to discuss rather, how it is that the differences that exist among us can really prevent us from coming together as Caribbean citizens. And I want to touch a little bit on the Twitter wars. Are the panelists familiar with? I see Kobe laughing, so I think he knows what's up. They're not, what are they called? It's not Twitter wars, it's island wars, and ever so often there's some islands for some reason going back and forth at it, and it's just a mess.
Claim Rihanna.
Yeah. Yes, things like that. Sometimes I mean, I've been on Twitter and I've seen them, and sometimes some things that I said are really hurtful, and I know that some people get blocked, and it's sometimes it's a mess. Some persons it's fun, and it's we can understand it's a joke, but for others, they leave the atmosphere with a different understanding of what we should be as Caribbean citizens. So I just want first for the panelists to touch very briefly, these misunderstandings that can arise from such interactions. How can we react positively? How can we move forward? And how can we change the narrative that says, yes, we're Caribbean, but we're not together? How do we move forward from that?
I'll attempt to answer that, but before I do, it's just something I wanted to make on the earlier point that I made when it came to political participation, and just a point to draw to your attention. Whenever governments change, it is because young people come out and vote.
I can attest to that. I live in.
Whenever you find the government changes or there's a rally with a particular opposition, you find that they often target young people, and it's when young people come out and vote that things happen. So therefore, use that as your catalyst again to prove your point. To come back to the point that you made, though, I think that there in the Caribbean there's a lot that definitely brings us together in our shared customs, our shared norms, and what we do, as we can see even in the same jest on Instagram and Twitter. And there's a lot that divides us as well. And I think that it is okay to point out differences, but once you do it in a respectful manner. So the conversation about, let's say, go back to Rihanna and Jamaica. That is a conversation that'll forever always be funny. So it is one where you can jest about those things, but from the time you go down into a line that is borderline disrespectful, then you need to take an introspective look and say, okay, this is not where I want to take this conversation. So as a Caribbean, as I said, we have a lot that makes us unique. We have a lot that we share in culture. And it is okay to be different. It is okay to have differences of opinion. It will be ideal to have a united front always, but we also have to be conscious of our own xenophobia and insularities. And it is something that nobody will ever get perfect. But once we continue to have constant dialogue and be respectful of each other, then we shouldn't have an issue.
Okay, I would like to also touch on this point. As you may know, I'm also a history teacher. So when I look at the Caribbean, I look at it from the past and how it affects the present. And I realize that we have more things that unite us than what separate us. So I believe it starts with education, as well as interaction between different Caribbean people. This can be through social media, through physical interaction with these people, through sports. But it all starts with education. I think the mindset has to change, that we are a separate region. Barbados is Barbados, Jamaica is Jamaica, Trinidad is Trinidad, and we must change that mindset to we are all one. We are better together than separate.
Definitely. I was actually going to call on you, Neil, to address it because I know you're a history teacher. Big up yourself, by the way. I'm studying history and archaeology, so it's really great to know that there are several people left out there. And I want to touch a little bit on that education because, and I'm gonna say it. So generally, as Caribbean youth, we tend to not know much about our counterparts or neighbors. I'm Jamaican, I live in Jamaica, so it may be a case where I just know about Jamaica, and therefore Jamaica is the Caribbean. And it might be that somebody's from Dominica, and so Dominica is the Caribbean. But how do we really get into the culture of understanding that we're so together that we need to learn more about each other and not just rely on it for regional exams such as CSEC? I mean, how do we become more engaged and actively learn about the other countries so that we can understand that we really are, for the most part, one and the same?
I would also like to comment on what you just said, because that's not how it is in Anguilla. I don't know if it's a small island, big island thing, because we learn in primary school and high school about the entire Caribbean. We learn about your prime ministers, your national boards, your national flowers and everything, your capitals and so on. So I think it has to start with the education system. Maybe the education system in Jamaica needs to be revamped, because when I was 10 years old, I couldn't tell you who your prime minister was.
Well, I'm glad Neil made that point, because, we in Barbados lent him to Anguilla. But I do agree with the point to say that it starts with the educational system. And I'm very happy that you made that point, because we still have a situation where we are learning the history of the colonizers. And we are not learning much about our Caribbean brothers and sisters, unfortunately, for some people, until they go to UWI, Cave Hill, St. Augustine, or Mona. And it is quite sad that is the case in some situations. So it definitely has to start with education, and it definitely means that we need to teach our own history in our schools. There's no way that I'm not going to say no way that I should learn about it, but English and European history should not be the major focus of my entire academic well, I say history class from the entire high school. I should be learning about the 1937 riots. I should be learning about the great uprisings of the Caribbean states. So it means then that we as a Caribbean still have a way to go. We've done well at the university level in terms of UWI, and I think UWI is probably one of the greatest efforts of regional integration so far, but I think it comes a little too late in that stage where you're already seasoned in your own perceptions, and I don't want to deal with the Chinese or this or Jamaicans or whatnot. It comes a little too late for you to be woke in a sense. It should come from an earlier age.
I must confess that I am getting a little bit too excited right now, because we're discussing history and I'm seeing the things that are being said in the chat, and I'm very overjoyed. But I'm going to try to stick to what's happening here.
Actually,
Go
I just
ahead,
want to,
Anya.
yeah, I want to say that our government leaders need to not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. It cannot be that we have our Caribbean heads of government meeting at CARICOM meetings or OECS meetings, whatever it is, and then you're hearing two political leaders or heads of government fighting over who should give who food. That's all the shade I have. Let's continue.
You see, you and you're okay.
Embarrassing.
I'm gonna leave that right there, but thank you for sharing that. I definitely agree, and I echo all the sentiments about us learning about our history, and I definitely agree with you, Kobe. What is said in or taught in the classroom for a large part of my experience, it really is European history. And yes, that's important, because obviously the interactions between the Atlantic world and the Caribbean and Europe really shaped who we are, but we really need to zoom in on our relative roots and historical groundings here. I see the questions in the chat and I'm going to get to them, but we're going to pause for a cause right now and invite Miss Sandy Miller, who is the Deputy Vice President of Disaster Mitigation and Climate Change here at UWISTAT Mona. She has a poem for us. So, Sandy, it is your time.
Hello?
Yes, Sandy, we're hearing you.
All right, you're going to see me now.
Hi, Sandy.
Hello. Hello, guys. Okay, I know it's a bit dark, but I hope you guys will enjoy this poem. My name is Sandy Miller. Hi again to everyone. All right. And it's called Youths Arise. Youths arise, arise, arise. Youths arise. Youths arise and set your minds free. Liberate your souls and fill that deep hole. That deep hole. That deep hole that's filled with pure condemnation and segregation that tries to deprive and stop your destination. Youths arise like the morning sun. Young man, yes, you put down the gun. Young woman, it's time to cover up and show them that you're more than just a leg, breasts, and thigh, but you have a brain filled with ideas that can liberate the nation and set trends for the future generation. Youths arise, do not be discouraged because of the color of your skin, for it is not a sin but a blessing. So arise and set the captive free, and that be that leader you want to be. Become that doctor, that teacher, that lawyer, that preacher, that next prime minister that stop the segregation and unite the nation. Become that youth. So youths arise and be what you want to be. Just become the master of your own destiny. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you for that message, reminding us to arise and, unlock our paths and chart our own destiny. I'm going to bring another question to the attention of the panelists. So this one says, the percentage of male graduates are getting less and less when compared to that of female graduates in universities in the Caribbean. How can we as youth help to address or correct this curve? Most of our males are into drugs and gangs and staying on the block, and our females are doing the opposite. Okay, how can we help to address the curve as young people?
I love that question so much. You don't even know how much I love that question. As a teacher, you can see it every day. From the time I started teaching primary school, I saw the problems. One of the biggest problems is interest. The students don't have much interest in the classroom based on the teaching styles and so on. Most times it's not interactive. As young males, they want to be moving and so on, but they're forced to sit in the class and just listen for probably an hour about, some story that happened 20 years ago. Not 20, 200 years ago. And another thing is parenting styles. I know that's a weird one for me to say, parenting styles, but think about it. If a young boy in primary school or in high school, he comes home from school, he can come home at any time. A young girl has to come home at 6 and do her homework and be engaged in school. And that interest alone goes a long way in making students excel in school.
I'm going to go out on a limb here on the risk of sounding bad. Let me say from the outset that I do believe that the interest or the push toward making sure that females are included and have the same opportunities as men is something that should be championed as well. But I found that with that movement, there hasn't been much attention paid to the younger boys in particular, and they're almost falling by the wayside. So I just wanted to make that point so it doesn't sound sexist in a way. But I think that there needs to be some greater emphasis placed on the younger gentlemen as well, because at this point we're seeing almost the opposite, where before it was all about the young boys and now it's all about the young women, and it's gone from one extreme to the other. So we have to ensure that we educate. We have to ensure that we make sure that there are policies and programs in place as well to generate that interest and to let them know that they're still encouraged, that they still have worth in society, and they need to progress as well too. So that's something that I think will go a long way from an early stage. It can't just happen at a secondary school stage or high school or college stage, but it has to start from that toddler primary age to boost that self-confidence and get them involved in all the activities that they can be successful as well.
One more thing, I also think that it starts from the home. We tell our boys basically that, you don't have to do that. You can be a mechanic or whatever. If you now teach them that even if you have to be a mechanic or to be a tradesman, that you still need the academic knowledge, you still need the skills and the certificate and so on, and you push them along that path, that will take them a long way.
I was going to add that Neil spoke about interest in the style of teaching, but there must also be an interest in the existing curriculum. And what we realize happening now is that the skill set that is required by the job market is not what is or what we have a heavy reliance on in the current academic system. So that is something that I realize that there is slowly progress for addressing that. But of course, we need to move faster. We need to move as fast as we moved when we were forced to transition to online learning because of COVID-19. So, I mean, government need to place priority on addressing these things in the education system if we were to increase the record rate of high school male graduates. Another interesting point, is that we have a higher level of male juvenile offenders. And these young men, they commit the offense, but what happens after they would have gone through the whole process, the judiciary process of paying the time or whatever it is? What happens to them after? What forms of transition is being laid out or put into place for these young boys to be reintegrated into society? How do we mitigate against discrimination against these young men? I mean, you would not want to go into a school if you do not, if as soon as you enter the school door, you screamed out, you jet at, and you end up finding yourself in a fight. This is not this is not a culture that we should try to continue. And unless again government pays attention in building the socioeconomic situation of these young people from a very tender age, and it must not just be that young person, but it must be an approach where it targets the entire family, that entire person's background, because also somebody who is living in a very poor housing condition, they would have psyche issues. And of course, they cannot focus at school. You have a young boy who grew up with a mother who doesn't have, and I'm speaking reality. There is a program I coordinated at the SSDF called Our Voice Matter program. And this is a situation where a young boy, he's 19 now. When he started the program, he was 17 years old. And the program is a program which targets young boys within the secondary schools who do not have the wherewithal to attend school and, of course, graduate successfully or be work ready. So the program provides the level of support that would give them that additional support that they would not have otherwise received given their socioeconomic background. So this guy was at 17 years old. His literacy level was that of a grade 1 student. And what the reports were that he was a very disruptive child, but was any attention paid to that child by the teacher or teachers to perhaps do the name is not coming out, but to do a test to ascertain that child's level of literacy. And that was not done at the school, so you would find that child was very disruptive, and then he was being jet at because, of course, he was not on par with the others. So men need the young boys need that kind of support, and we teach them that men should not cry because men are supposed to be strong. We teach them to hide their emotions and man up, but whereas you have girls who comfort each other and who are able to open up because of the nature of growing up. So I mean, it has a lot to do with socialization of the young men and how we as a community or we as a society think that or take strides and steps towards bettering how we socialize with our young men, and that toxic masculinity must be something of the past. Also, critical components. And I think that is something that has worked a lot and will continue to work, although it's not something that is as common as it should be, because most times it is voluntarism, and you don't get people staying committed to voluntarism for so long. Is mentorship. Mentorship is a very critical component in terms of providing psychosocial support for young men so that they could, of course, become better or higher graduates and be, of course, more successful young men and contributors to society. So again, it is really a holistic approach.
And if I could just add on to what Anya said, in her last point when she talks about socialization, and I think that's sometimes something that we have to pay a greater emphasis on in understanding what, again, as I made in an earlier point, in the Caribbean, we have a lot that unites us and a lot that separates us as well. And unfortunately, one thing that unites us is sometimes some of the pain and baggage that we've taken from an era that has gone and have brought it into this new era in the sense of where we are sometimes not even conscious of the abusiveness that we show toward our children or some of the traditions that we do that really we would need to get rid of. And it calls for in that socialization, and it is not something that a policy can fix. It is not something that a government can fix. It calls for a new national consciousness on an individual country level to see that these are some of the things that we have been doing wrong, or a recognition that they have been wrong, and so that we can look forward to what is the new standard, what is the new thing that we need to look to, because something as simple as mental health. And we just today is the end of Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. And one of the conversations that I've been having with some mental health advocates and so on is that we still have a situation where young people who are suicidal or young people who are having difficulties, when they reach out to adults, the comment is almost, well, you're so young, you don't got nothing to worry about, or what you could be suicidal about. So it comes with socialization of our community and the need to have that national dialogue for introspection and reevaluation of where we want to go and what we want our new identity to be, coming out of what we would have been given from whoever colonized us. So as Barbados becomes a republic next year, we are going to have that internal conversation about what our new national consciousness will look like, and what standards we want to set for ourselves as a society. And I think that is a conversation that all Caribbean countries should have, because we still see a lot of remnants of the areas of colonialism and slavery and so on that have been passed on through traditions, and we just take them as gospel and just do them because other people did them, and not question the relevance of them and see how they can be psychologically and physically damaging to our young people.
It's good that we're having these conversations at our ages. It means that we are ready to break these intergenerational gaps. Curses. So that's a good thing. Great point, Kobe.
I am actually so happy, so grateful that we are having these spaces where we can have these discussions, and that it is on a regional level. Because as we would have mentioned before, we are all facing similar issues. We all need to overcome similar obstacles. So I'm very happy for all the points that the panelists have shared thus far. There are great conversations happening in the chat. Persons are sharing their opinions on some of the things that we would have been discussing, such as the reformation of the educational system across the region, really digging into our history, tackling issues of marginalization, and really reaching our hands across the various islands, despite the geographical or the apparent geographical barriers, to be effective change makers. There is also mention of mental health. And I'm very happy that, because, there is, even though it is slowly being eradicated, a stigma surrounding mental health, especially within the Caribbean region. And having just ended Suicide Awareness Month, Kobe, you would have touched on it a little bit, but I want us to explore how it is that we can really be our brothers and sisters keeper, even though we are in various islands, as regards to mental health. Because also you would have mentioned that self-apprehension and self-doubt are also hindrances to us being able to be effective leaders, Caribbean leaders, in the same way depression, amongst other things, can affect that too. So how can we reach out across the barriers to help each other?
Well, I guess at this point is a matter of checking in with people and making sure that they're okay. If it is one thing that everybody has learned from this lockdown, from this pandemic, is that mental health is extremely important. Because if you were not physically strong, or you were not having, I know, like from a quick level, we had a regional activity almost every week. Then you had things from like NYCs and so on and so forth. If we did not have those kinds of level of conversations, being able to check in on people, checking in via Zoom and all those different kind of things, you would have really lost a lot of contact. And that would have played a big part on you mentally as well. So I think utilizing the technology to make sure to check in with people, make sure to check in with your regional contacts and so on, and build and maintain relationships. That's one thing that I want everyone to take away from this, especially from a Caribbean perspective. You have to build and maintain relationships. Check in, even if it, like me, I'm a horrible person at texting, at WhatsApp, but I have it in my reminders to pop up almost once a month at least. Kobe, check in with your regional people. Send them a message, find out how they're doing, etc. And I dedicate probably maybe an hour once every month just to message everybody and say, okay, guys, what's up? What are you doing? What projects are you working on, and so forth. So even if it means slotting in that in your calendar or whatever, try to build and maintain relationships.
Definitely. The final question from the chat it says, even though we are in an unprecedented time with COVID-19, how can we as young people take advantage of this and lead the way in this new normal? So very briefly, your thoughts on that. I think I want to start with Neil. Neil, how do we take advantage of this new normal as young people and really champion the way or go forward?
Well, I think through this lockdown, we have realized that youth are actually taking the lead, because now we have to do everything virtually using technology and so on. So when we realize this, then we realize that we no longer can live in the past, live in a way how, ancient times of doing things, ancient ways of doing things, and we now move towards a new approach. So in that way, we are already taking the lead.
That we are. Any of the other panelists want to comment on that?
Neil said it perfectly. Necessity is really the mother of all invention. So in a time of adversity, what we need to do is think of ideas whereby we could be creative, be innovative. Kobe would have alluded to the things that were done on a regional level with CRIC. I would have noticed also that a lot of entrepreneurs moved into e-commerce. So that is a means of taking the front as young people. And dialogues like these, Ashley, can really put the youth at an advantage, because you would have realized how intense the discussions were, how thought-provoking they were. Somebody's going to hear something coming out of this discussion and, of course, engage more young people based on what they would have heard. So, I mean, it's really staying connected, like I said earlier, staying engaged, staying informed, and participating.
Agreed.
And just to wrap it all up nicely with a little bow, following on from what Neil and Anya said, with that e-commerce platform and so on, I've become a Zoom boss over the COVID-19 period. There's nobody better than me when it comes to Zoom. I sound like Donald Trump there in a sense, nobody better. But even in terms of that, I think that this COVID-19 pandemic, particularly for my observations in Barbados, has driven e-commerce to a new level, and people have been forced to adapt with the situation, as Anya said, necessity, out of necessity. So before, I could not get somebody to go and pick up groceries for me at the supermarket. Now there are about 18 different companies that will do that. Before, everybody now is a chef. Everybody's selling food. Everybody's doing these different things. You're finding so many professional development workshops. You're able to log into IGTV lives and to webinars and so on to be able to enhance yourself professionally and personally and so on. So I think coming out of this COVID-19 pandemic, and somebody did make the point, they talk about a new normal, but this is the normal now going forward. So we have to continue to adapt to the technology and be able to use it effectively and efficiently as to enhance our daily lives, and as young leaders, as leaders in our own right and space. We cannot be left behind when it comes to utilizing the technology. We have to be innovative. We have to be forward thinking. We have to push and test the boundaries as we are accustomed doing. Something as simple as my church is having an online crusade. So which is interesting, before you used to go set a tent outside and spend a whole set of money doing these things. So it comes to a point where you have to be innovative, and as young people, we have to lead that charge, because if we don't stay ahead of the curve, then
we get knocked.
we get knocked.
Yes. As we are bringing this wonderful and quite an insightful panel discussion, bringing it down to a close, I want to put forward a phrase that I had coined about yesterday, if I'm being really honest. It was the phrase or the term, well, I'm not saying I coined it because it might exist, integrational wealth. So I'm sure many persons are familiar with the term generational wealth, which essentially encapsulates the notion of putting forward resources, whether it be in the form of money or actual other entities, and putting them for, leaving them for your family so that they can build on it as the years go by. I want to bring that sort of understanding to collaboration throughout the Caribbean region. And I coined the phrase integrational wealth, which essentially for me is us as young people throughout the Caribbean coming together, sharing our resources, our knowledge, our skill sets throughout the Caribbean islands, building on that as the years go by so that we can move forward as a region. And I'd really love for each of the panelists to touch on, why do you think integrational wealth is something that is of a massive importance, and why do you think it's important for us to play our parts in establishing that? Was I muted? No, I'm not muted.
I guess you're waiting for the lady to go first, Kobe. I think this discussion, as well as so many others, would have stated perfectly or very eloquently why it's important for us to, or the importance of integrational wealth. We are separated by the water, but we have so many similarities. And of course, with the cohesion of our ideas, of course, we can build so much more that is going to help our region. So we have regional organizations that are working in the interest of the entire Caribbean, whichever sphere that they represent. And in as much as we are not seeing enough strides, let's look at CARICOM. We have under CARICOM, we have CXC, we have Caribbean Development Bank, which came as a lifesaver for so many countries during the pandemic. So we have also USAID, UN, we have OECS, organizations like these, wherein we have government provide that support to government, especially small island developing state countries who have very limited to no resources, little to limited resources. Sorry. So organizations like these, of course, we have a greater voice when we are represented in larger numbers, and of course, no number or amount of ideas is infinite enough to provide the solutions to the issues that we face. So the greater the integration, the greater our success as a region. That's the best I could say.
Following on from Anya, I think that the a very good coin by the way, integrational wealth. And I think that this is best, as the idea of integrational wealth is best exemplified by, I would say, Barbados's late Prime Minister Owen Arthur's drive for the CSME, where we essentially wanted to create a CARICOM single market and economy, because there's no way that if St. Lucia is producing bananas, that Barbados should be trying to compete with St. Lucia to produce bananas as well, where we may be better versed in producing sweet potatoes or sugar cane. So it means then, and as our Prime Minister, and I say our Prime Minister now, often says at the world stage and the world level, we as a Caribbean community have to band together, because Barbados trading with the United Kingdom may only get a one set of rate, but with CARICOM trading with the European Union, that creates a different level of acknowledgement for our space and acknowledgement for our goods and our services. So we need to get past our insularities, and be able to come together and recognize what is attainable, what are some of the resources that we can share, and what are some of the resources that we can build out as a Caribbean. And one of the things that really came to mind with that, I think, forgive me if I call it incorrectly, but I think it is a CARICOM Skills Laborers Program, where craftsmen and tradesmen can move it throughout the region with just their ID card and working in other countries. So there are some infrastructures in there, but as usual, one of the major setbacks and difficulties with that are individual countries' insularity, and being able to see for a bigger picture or so on. So I think that once we get past that and some of the, and they're very small and minute issues when you look at them at the surface and so on the surface, sorry, that stop us from really pushing ahead as a region. And I think that given these kinds of forums that we're having now as young people, that I hope that the leaders of the Caribbean now coming up in this generation will be so versed to the idea of integrational wealth, that when we eventually take over the heads of governments, that when we sit at the CARICOM heads of government meeting, it wouldn't be a talk shop, but it will be a place of serious business where we actually try to push the agenda of the Caribbean and ensure that all of our countries get an equal stake at the table.
It's always best to let Anya and Kobe go before you, because they give you all the information. So I would just like to add that it is necessary for development and with the Caribbean and Caribbean youth moving towards a sustainable development movement within our region. It is best that we no longer do things separate, but learn from the examples that are already there. For example, I may be, in terms of the education issue you had earlier, in Anguilla, we already have that amendments to our Education Act. Now, you guys can use that example instead of reinventing the wheel and actually develop your country. But that can only be done if there's dialogue and interaction between the different people of different Caribbean. So I can actually see, as Kobe said, a big difference coming in the future, because right now, from the beginning, we are already interacting. So when we are actually taking up the government, now I'm the Premier of Angola, and Kobe is the, what you call it, President of Barbados.
The President.
Now as a republic, there'll be definitely a change and a difference.
And Neil, just to not to prolong the point as well too, but it also means then that all political parties as well also need to see the goal, and the I'm saying also need to see the importance of that integrational wealth, because you've seen it in certain instances when certain parties are in power. You find that there's a greater push for CARICOM in individual countries, and then when others aren't, it's almost like, well, we can do everything ourselves. So it comes with an understanding that both government and opposition also need to see that importance of the regional space, and not just for when a hurricane hits and everybody responds, but it means things on a basic level that we come together and pool resources and share resources as well.
Wow, if I'm being quite honest, I don't like these parts of the program. I don't like the closing, because this was such an impactful program. I think that there's so many things that would have been discussed that really resonated with each and every person who is tuned in here via Zoom or on YouTube. So many gems were dropped. We discussed overcoming the barriers to regional leadership, you know, the mental issues, the issues of marginalization, the need to improve our educational sector, the need to hold our stakeholders and political leaders accountable. Say, if you are about regional integration, if you're about us coming together as one big Caribbean family. We need to actually move away from the idea of just making these ideas and discussing them to actually making them a reality. And on that note, I really want to thank our panelists, Kobe, Anya, Keisha, Neil. Thank you so very much. I am elated. I'm sure everybody here on this call would have benefited immensely from listening to you all share your insights on various topics. Special thanks to all the participants, whether you are from UWISTAT, CRYC, or any of the other regional bodies, whether you're an ambassador designate, an alumni from UWI. Thank you to the Institutional Advancement Division of University of the West Indies, and anybody else who is on the call. I just want to say that you can reach out to all the panelists. They would have shared their contact and their social media handles in the chat, and everybody would have shared their social media handles in the chat so that we can have these discussions ongoing in probably a little bit more relaxed manner. And then hopefully when COVID is gone, we can have a little island link up. What do you say? We come into Barbados, or is it Anguilla, or where are we going? St. Lucia?
Well, you could come to St. Lucia now.
Thank you for that.
Well, I don't think Neil is accepting any visitors, but Barbados never closed.
No, he isn't.
Thank you for that. I also want to say that you can watch the recording of the live stream on YouTube. So tell your friends if it is that they missed this live segment. I also want to implore you to follow the social media handles of the Caribbean Regional Youth Council and Anguilla National Youth Council. All of these places that would have been mentioned earlier on. We had mentioned the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States Youth Advisory Network, CFRY, Community Family Youth Resilience. And I'm also encouraging you, shameless plug, follow UWISTAT. UWISTAT Mona, UWISTAT Cave Hill, UWISTAT St. Augustine and Open Campus on Instagram, on Twitter. Let's keep this dialogue ongoing. Thank you again, everyone, for joining. We really appreciate it. Thank you again, panelists. I am indebted to you all, and we'd love to have you again for another stirring conversation such as this.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you. So thank you for joining us again for our first ever Caribbean Youth Day, UWISTAT's first ever Caribbean Youth Day online forum under the theme Leadership Empowerment Activated in Diversity. Thank you all, everyone. Have a blessed night, and let's keep the conversation going on our social medias. Thank you for joining. I'm Ashley Ontroy, and have a great night.